What's up, everybody? We are back for part 2, responding to our favorite carnivore healer and anecdote collector, Dr. Sorry, I can hear myself from somewhere.
So that was on my phone.
I'm having many heart attacks today. Thank you very much, boys. Anyway, so we are back to responding to Dr. Shawn Baker being interviewed by a 5-minute body. And so far, our conclusions are the entire nutritional field sucks, unless it has interesting things that Shawn can say. Take from it, the obesity is both not genetic and genetic, but not a main contributor in obesity. And what else? Oh, crab deaths, though, although Shawn was fixed on that predicament many times. But, you know.
He said something about liking steak. So, for whatever that's worth.
I totally believe him. It's a completely true statement. All right. The real thing. Hello, Pig's Dream. Hello. Efrendo, what's up? Heisel.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
Is the name. Heisenflay. That's an amazing name. All right.
So just to say off the top of my head, I think Shawn mentioned 3 studies so far. Like there was one he mentioned on phytonutrients. He mentioned Stefan van Villet. I think that's how you say his name. And regarding this paper, even if, for example, grass-fed flesh has got phytonutrients, he'll need to provide some sort of study to show that it's actually associated with beneficial health outcomes. And then he mentioned the study, what was it, in Asia?
Yep.
A review paper. Well, not in Asia. I had a look at it, and it looked at Western populations and Eastern populations, and it was just a review paper, and you'll need to go into every one of the studies. But traditionally, Asian cultures, they have low intakes of meat, so you might not be able to see the an effect with the intakes they're having. And so it wasn't a meta-analysis. And then the last paper he mentioned was a paper from 2018. I think it was to do with low carnitine levels and depression. And again, it could... so it's kind of difficult to see whether this is just a correlation.
Mm-hmm.
And just with regards to the papers which sometimes find vegetarians or people following vegetarian style eating patterns and hide, depressive symptoms, often the depression comes before the dietary change. So that's something to bear in mind.
Yeah, and let's remind everybody that none of this matters because Shawn doesn't think that nutritional science has any merit. That was the beginning of this last week.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and also he's essentially actor/comedian because it's just for entertainment. So really, take everything with a grain of salt. I bet he has headshots somewhere.
That's a scary thought, Brandon. People in the chat, please let us know that you can hear Brandon and Patrick before we will move on, and that our sound levels are okay. I don't want anybody to have their head blown off. And now, can you hear Shawn?
Obviously, a Coke and French fries or something like that. So, there's a nice study
I can hear
out of Asia. Was
good. Yes. Hello, Bianca. Hi, everyone. So let's continue.
So I think this bit we've already done. Yeah.
Sorry.
So, I think the study he's mentioning we've already went through.
Yeah, but we can't know for sure because there are no links.
I think we finished off at the start of the next section.
Yeah. I timed it out. All right.
Where they showed that all the data out of Asian studies don't really show a relationship to any type of meat, whether it's processed or unprocessed, and increased risk of colorectal cancer. I've cited that study many, many times. And so that was out of Korea, by the way. So it's one of those things where, again, it depends. What do you mean by process? What's it processed with? And I think that's really the issue, quite honestly, and how we consume our meat in general.
Okay, so when it comes to
So,
carnivore, I think
with,
another.
with
Sorry?
I'll
Sorry.
just say with regards to how it's consumed, there was a paper looking at meat consumption in the Nurses' Health and Health Professional Study. So it grouped them together, and it found that it sort of looked at how meat is consumed, whether as sort of a sandwich or in lasagna, burgers, or separately as a main. And so overall, in the pooled analysis, consuming the meat separately had a slightly greater risk. So it was like 29%. It was 29% increased risk consuming the meat separately, but with sort of like a lasagna or as a meal, it was like 27% increased risk. So similar, sort of risks for the two.
Well, that's always so funny because every time they're like, "Oh, it's the bread in the burger," or like they're like, "Oh, it's the pasta in the lasagna." But then when you look at meat being consumed like by itself, it has a greater risk. So
Oh my God.
that's hilarious. Yeah, I don't know why they think it would be the buns and not the actual beef patty. I don't know, but yeah, that's funny. Good call out, Patrick.
So just to reiterate, carbs mitigate 2% risk when eating this meat.
Potentially, yeah,
Potentially, of course. All right.
Before we get into the best tips to start and things that people do that might be ruining their carnivore results, I wanted to ask about research and evidence backing up a carnivore diet, because that's what people say. There's no long-term research.
There is no long-term research.
So
It's not this.
it depends on what you like. Long term, there's one sort of survey out where they sort of went on social media and asked who wants to. It came out of Harvard, but that's like the only sort of specifically carnivore related in humans sort of data I've seen published.
Well, no, Patrick, you have the 8 that Steak and Butter Gal made up.
Oh yeah,
So you've got those studies,
Oh, yeah,
that
shoot.
exist somewhere, either in her mind or in the cloud or something.
Brandon, in the Lancet, in the bloody Lancet.
Yeah, in the Lancet, yeah, that we couldn't find.
Yeah, for people listening, we did a reaction to Steak and Butter Gal, and it was very strange because there was just citations which didn't actually exist.
Oh my God. Dude, what's so crazy about that is when I reposted that, I don't I know that almost every carnivore, because the average viewing is like 4 minutes and that video was like an hour long. So I know that most people who comment, they don't watch it. But the whole point of the video was this person is either really, really bad at citing her sources, or they are making things up and are lying. And nobody seemed to care about. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. You can't do that, right? You can't just make things up or lie or poorly cite. You do that, you actually if you do that in college, you fail. You lose. You don't get credit for the paper. So I got hundreds of comments on that video for these people to seemingly not care and just still be behind this diet really tells me all I need to know about the mindset and about, their what they view as strong evidence,
Well, one of the first things they are told is they lied to you, that
yeah.
epidemiology is a bad way to do science, and most
Everyone's paid off.
exactly. So you are propped basically to not change your mind anymore, right?
I'll just quickly also add that I did share, a few screenshots of Steak and Butter Girl making the claims on Twitter and also on Instagram. And one person did say, I found the study in the Lancet, and then he DM'd it to me, and it was a random study on, diabetes or something like this, completely unrelated.
Yeah, it just baffles me. Like, I don't understand. Like, I don't get it. I don't know. I'm like scratching my head every time. I don't get it.
Did it even mention, I don't know, the carnivore diet, the keto
No.
diet, meat, anything? Damn.
No.
The Lancet is lagging.
There's no evidence for it. Can you cite some evidence for people watching that might think, okay, I would like to try it, I'm doing it, but I'm not really sure for the long term if it's safe? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, first of all, I would argue that there is no long-term research on any diet of sufficient rigor that would conclude one way or the other. I think that's just really hard research to do. We have some short-term studies that are either recently been published or are in the works right now. And in fact, I am actually actively working with several research groups to get a number of studies done right now.
Hold on. Have they recently been published, or are they in the works?
In the works.
Because he said he said that have recently been published, but then you said they're in the works. So I don't know what that means. You can't have both.
I think he's talking about something being published and that his studies are in the works.
Okay.
I think it's
maybe.
But
It's really hard research to do. We have some short-term studies that are either recently been published or are in the works right now. And in fact, I am actually actively.
Yeah, that doesn't seem clear to me. Like,
No.
what is he?
Yeah, you're right. I didn't catch that. Holy shit.
That's very weird. You can't have. Are they published, and can we go see them, or are they in the works? Right? You can't have both. That doesn't make any sense.
Are there? Have you seen anything, Patrick?
Not really, but yeah, I was just going to add an extra point about the long term. What does he mean by long term? Again, it's just so vague, because there's long term cohorts of vegan cohorts, like adherence of more than 20 years, such as the Adventist Health Study 2, or you can also do genetic studies, Mendelian randomization, looking sort of, at cholesterol levels across the lifespan. So I think there's good evidence to point towards what sort of eating patterns in the long term will be beneficial for health.
But also, there's not even any short-term studies on carnivore diet. There's nothing on the carnivore diet, like zero, other than that social media survey. So
that's that social media survey, Brendan.
I know, right? That everybody cites, but other than that, like, there's nothing. So I don't know. At least let's just say there were only short-term studies on plant-based diets or on vegan meat or whatever, right? We at least have something. There's something to go off of. Some kind of study, some kind of evidence, something that's beyond just anecdotes. So to go towards a diet that has nothing and to say, well, we don't really know either way, is incredibly dishonest, I think, and definitely misleading.
There might be some lower, in animals studies, which I've not seen, but in humans, there's very little. And so it's about sort of looking at the best evidence we have and adjusting or, making substitutions. So there's, the studies, randomized controlled trials, which do switching red meat for mycoprotein, for example, and seeing how that affects cardiometabolic risk factors.
Yeah, he basically has a captive audience, right? He wants to do a month-long randomized control, whatever, he can do that. People will fall over themselves to be in that trial, right? People who like him. Even if it would be like a self-selected population, if you put them on a diet and win them off it and switch things around, that would be good data, right?
The problem with that, I think, is if you're picking a population that's already sold on the carnivore diet, there's going to be a lot of bias. So I don't know if you're talking about like putting people who follow the carnivore diet on like a plant-based diet and like seeing maybe, but we'd probably want like somebody more neutral.
Yeah, but you can do objective measurements, right? You can do your subjective
That's
stuff,
true.
right?
Yeah,
you
I
can
could
do,
just yeah.
how do you feel and blah blah blah. But you can do objective. You can draw blood. You can look at the biomarkers. You can do all kinds of shit. You can measure their fucking lipids. You can measure their heart rate. Everything.
So like a cross-sectional would be possible, right? Taking a population of vegans or carnivores and just comparing sort of cholesterol and other biomarkers. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know why it's so long. He's talking about short term as well. Why is it so long in the works? He's not talking about long term situation. He's not talking about decades here.
Yeah, he raised funds as well for it. So
we got to research that at some point. I want to know what he did with the funds. I hope that comes out.
Of course, it will come out.
Working with several research groups to get a number of studies done right now this year, and hopefully they'll get started this year. Our company, Rivera, which maybe we'll talk about a little bit, will be doing our own research and publishing our data. Up to this point, there was a study that Dave Ludwig out of Harvard was a senior author on, where it was a survey, and so it's not really like the end of the discussion, but it certainly showed that there are at least people doing the diet over a period of at least 6 months and up to 28 years where their health seems to be doing quite well. And generally that the outcomes were quite good. There is a series of case reports that are coming out.
Did he say up to 28 years?
Yeah, who's on the carnivore diet for 28 years? Is that
I've heard a few anecdotes. Yeah, I mean, the only thing I've heard is like either a comment from somebody being like, I've been on the carnivore diet for decades. But I haven't seen anybody track anything. It's all been anecdotes. So yeah, I don't know if he's just referring to anecdotes there or what. I don't know.
And then he's talking about fucking case reports. Case reports, one of the most useless thing to make any assumptions about nutrition, right? Case report is in and on itself. You report something that is out of bounds. Usually.
Yeah, and the problem with anecdotes is like you see this with like plant-based people who are no longer plant-based. A lot of times they were eating animal products way before they actually came out and told people because they were experimenting or they were trying different things. So who knows, with the amount of people who claim to be on the carnivore diet, who knows how many people are eating bananas, behind the scenes, or eating, cake, or eating these different foods, or fruit, like who knows how long Paul Saladino was experimenting with plants before he actually came out and told everybody. So it's hard to really verify somebody's diet when you're only going off of what they're willing to tell, right? Because people hide things. They don't want to be ostracized. They don't want to, people do lie or do white lies to like protect themselves. So it's hard without actually tracking a population or tracking individuals.
I'll be interested to see what his reaction would be if, vegans made a survey and said, sign up if you've to describe how you felt on a diet devoid of animal source calories and
right. Like if like plant-based news or somebody put in made a post that was like, tell us how you feel on a vegan diet. If we just took those results and we're like, see, vegans are doing great, Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Disorders, several anorexics, which basically cured their anorexia, which is something that's just very difficult to do. There will soon be, probably within the next month or two, another case series of people with inflammatory bowel disease, which put that completely in remission with a carnivore diet. There are
What's that disease?
Within the next month or two,
another
case series of people with inflammatory bowel disease, which put that.
Oh, inflammatory bowel disease. IBD. Well, isn't IBD the type of disease that you have long-term remissions and then you dip again into the into inflammation and fucking nightmare in it? but the remission is part of the disease, isn't it? In case of ulcerative colitis and Crohn's.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not too familiar with IBD. I do know like certain dietary changes can help with symptoms, medications too. I was gonna say about the eating disorder or the anorexia thing.
Yes.
There's no cure. It's not a cure, right? You just manage your relationship with your food, with body better. It's almost all. It's almost, well, I don't want to make any claims, but it to me, eating disorders seem very psychological, right? So there's not. I wouldn't say you've cured your anorexia, right? You're just managing your relationship to food and yourself better, which helps with the symptoms of anorexia. But yeah, this language of cure I really don't like.
Yeah. And also
it's
saying
very
you cured your anorexia by eating one
by eating
thing.
3 foods, steak, eggs, no, steak, butter, and steak, eggs, and butter. Yeah, that seems. I don't know.
Did he say that there is a study coming out on this?
He's talking about case reports.
Yeah, I think he's talking about individual case reports.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to what you mentioned about the flare-ups. Someone, for example, it can be difficult to sort of identify causality because someone can change their diet and then their flare-up could end at the same time as they've changed their diet. And just because of not knowing how things work in terms of causality, they could say, "Oh, I've changed my diet; it cured my, Crohn's or something like this." So it's important to do everything with an expert, appropriate health professional.
Yeah.
But also, let's just say the carnivore diet. Let's say a low fiber diet does help certain individuals with like IBD. That doesn't really mean that's the best option, right? Because now you're switching to a diet that are lacking in phytonutrients, that are lacking or that are most likely increasing your risk of heart disease and other chronic diseases. Sure, you fix your IBD or you've temporarily, your symptoms have subsided for IBD, but there's long-term risks associated with that diet. Whereas if you try to find a fix with a plant-based diet, or you were able to find a medication that can help your symptoms or help your IBD, you might actually have better outcomes. I know like the carnivore people, they really don't like medication. They really don't like medicinal fixes with like pills and stuff. But if you could eat fully plant-based and take a medication to fix your IBD or ulcerative colitis or whatever, who cares, right? Like, wouldn't you want to eat a diet that has better long-term health outcomes and fix your ulcerative colitis? You don't have to just eat beef liver and steak. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and also low fiber diets are compatible with animal-free diets. It just might require a little bit more thinking, and also ketogenic diets is compatible with plant-based diets. And
it requires restriction, which is what those guys are good at. They're restricting themselves to 1 to 3 foods anyways, right? So sorry, Patrick, I apologize.
Yeah, I was just going to add that the more, adding some vegetable oils to a ketogenic diet will be a better, generally seems to be like help create a more health promoting ketogenic diet. So it's possible because there's just so many plants of different characteristics available.
Honestly, ever since I started eating puppy ears, my IBD went away. The symptoms went away. So I'm just going to continue eating puppy ears. That's probably the only thing that works. So
it's not restrictive at all.
That completely in remission with a carnivore diet. There are Cleo Protegio at the University of California, Merced, and Frederic Lavoie out of Belgium put together another study a couple of years ago on carnivore. Basically, beliefs and motivations. And basically it was, again, more survey data. So
just to remind everybody, the question was, is there scientific proof for long-term carnivore dieting?
And now he's talking about beliefs and motivations. Okay.
But we will be doing interventional trials, like I said, primarily probably against diabetes because it's such a huge burden. We'll show that because, as you probably are aware, a lot of people go carnivore that are diabetic, and they literally put that disease in remission quite reliably. So we'll see that. Hopefully we'll also get some studies on some of these autoimmune conditions.
What did he say? Sorry?
Go carnivore that are diabetic, and they literally put that disease in remission quite
Yeah, they lost weight.
reliably.
Either weight loss
So
or I was gonna say, if you're not consuming any carbs, then yeah, I can imagine your diabetes symptoms are gonna go
Yeah,
away.
you're
Or
not
gonna
gonna see
be
the
suppressed.
insulin spikes, are you?
Right, but that doesn't tell us anything about the other aspects of the diet long term. Like,
I
okay, you're
wouldn't.
not consuming any sugar. Okay, so it helps with diabetes. What about heart disease? What about other things, you know?
Also, I wouldn't call what you describe as a remission. I would call it living with diabetes, right? You just do not spike in your insulin. You still have diabetes. Like losing weight would put you in remission for diabetes, but even then, I don't know if doctors would say it's a remission. I'd say I don't know.
So there's specific criteria for remission, and yeah, restricting carbs can help for management of diabetes, but in general, any sort of method which helps someone restrict calories, and there's there's a fat threshold, which is sort of an hypothesis which has got lots of attention and has got a lot of support behind it, that once you sort of manage to lose enough weight, then you can put diabetes into remission. Yeah.
My boss is an endocrinologist. I should ask him one day. But damn it.
See that. Hopefully, we'll also get some studies on some of these autoimmune conditions that are coming out. So, I mean, it's when we look at, like, there's always vegans saying, well, look at all these studies. Well, veganism started back in the 1940s, and there are literally organizations which have millions, if not billions of dollars, like the Adventist Health System.
We're doing this again.
Dude, like the only thing he has to dispute the massive amounts of research is, well, there's an organization that has billions of dollars. What about the beef industry? Beef industry has way more money than any type of plant-based company or any type of like vegan industry that he thinks there is. And they lobby all the time, and they fund studies. It's just anything that he could say about any type of plant-based funding, we could say 5 times more about the beef industry. So I don't really see the point.
But more than that, guys, every study needs to be paid for, right? Study is an expensive shit to do, right? Even to hire someone like me to be a study coordinator, it's fucking expensive. It's paying full-time job for months, if not years, right? Somebody needs to fund it. There is no free study. That shit doesn't happen. Yeah, sorry.
And last year there was an interesting study which looked at the funding. I think it was from the public towards either the animal agriculture or towards plant-based alternatives. And in the US, I think it was like animal agriculture got 1,200 times more funding, and in the EU it was 800 times more funding.
Holy shit.
Right. Like, what are we talking about? Like, it's not even close. It's not even close. And again, I think it's like a cop-out. It's his only, instead of actually addressing issues with specific studies or addressing the science, he just says, well, broccoli's a pretty big industry, so there's got a lot of conflicts of interest. And it's just not, people who are convinced by that, again, I think have like the conspiratorial mindset, because it's not very convincing.
Yeah.
This research. And so that's why there's more research in that side. This is because they've had the money. On the carnivore side, we have very little money. We're just a new sort of thing. And as the...
So there's no long-term evidence. Just say that. There's no long-term evidence. You said it already once.
Also, no money, he's saying, when he, what was it, 100 grand he got? Something like this.
Out, we'll start to see things change. And right now, I mean, but do you need a long-term study to tell you how to eat? I don't think you do. I don't.
Oh gosh.
Is he another intuitive eater?
Yeah.
Like, oh, just eat intuitively, man. You know, if you're feeling like Oreos for a week straight, that's cool, man. Just intuitively eat.
If you want to eat dirt, just go for it.
Yeah. Maybe he'll appeal to ancestry though in a second. I don't know.
I think he will.
I mean, and if I'm going to wait till someone does a 50-year randomized control trial with twins locked in a metabolic ward to ultimately tell me what the right thing to eat.
Patrick. Or Brandon. Somebody. Say something.
What can we say? What can we say? We didn't need that for cigarettes, right? I bet he doesn't smoke, even though there wasn't a 50-year metabolic ward trial with twins proving that smoking, you know, like their standard of evidence changes based on the topic. You know, if it's smoking, okay, yeah, we can see smoking's bad for you. I won't smoke. If it's eating plant-based, no, man, there aren't twins locked up in a ward for 50 years. It's not good enough. Like, it's very inconsistent.
Yeah.
I'm gonna wait forever. It's not gonna happen. So I don't know that. I was criticized. I did a debate with this guy, Dr. Garth Davis, who's a vegan advocate. And one of the things I said was, I really don't know the long-term outcomes because I don't think it's knowable. And I'm being very honest with that. I don't know.
Oh, I understand now. So he says it's okay that we have long-term evidence for plant-based diets, but we don't have long-term evidence for carnivore diets because it's unknowable. So just again, he throws away the entire nutrition science, right? Out into the garbage.
We'll ever be able to definitively say this is the best way to eat on any diet. And so as I said that,
So just eat shit, and if you feel okay eating shit, just continue eating shit, right?
Yeah, I think he's doing like a nirvana fallacy. I think he's saying, well, because we can't know the perfect diet for sure, I'm going to eat what I think is best for me, and I'm going to advocate for that, which doesn't make any sense because we should still go after the strongest forms of evidence we have at the time, right? Like, yes, we may not know as much as we will in 50 years, but we do know as much as we know now, so we should follow that. It's really weird.
Yeah, DJ Cat in the chat says, carnivore diet, see what happens. That's a good commercial.
I can imagine if public health recommendations were just based on, eat based on feeling.
Was criticized. Well, you don't even know the long-term results. Well, no one does. No one can know that. So what I feel is that where the biggest utility is with nutrition is, in my view, nutrition has a huge role in the development of disease, the prevention of disease, and in my view, the cure of disease. And so if I can take someone who is sick today and make them not sick tomorrow, then that is a huge win in my view. And I think that is where the emphasis is. And clearly people are becoming less sick or not sick while doing this diet. And,
and some become incredibly sick, but we're not collecting those anecdotes.
Have any of you two actually seen Shawn Baker acknowledge the presence of negative experiences? So,
no,
I haven't seen anybody acknowledge the presence of negative experiences.
Yeah, didn't he used to? I could be making this up. Didn't he used to have like a Facebook group from which he would throw people out if they said anything negative about the carnivore diet?
I don't know. But it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
My suspicion, I think probably if you can remain not sick, you're probably going to live longer. I mean, I think that just intuitively makes sense. Can I say that with 100%? Certainly no. I mean, you get hit by a bus or struck by lightning or something. But I mean, I think...
Or you can be sick your entire life and live long. I mean, there are sicknesses with which you can live for a very long time. Like, not all sicknesses are terminal. Me having hyperlaxity is probably not gonna prevent me from living. Me smoking for 25 years, probably.
Instead of pretending we know how to make someone live to be 120 or 180, like some of these longevity gurus are claiming now, let's take these sick people, make them not sick, improve their quality of life, and continue that for as long as possible. I think that's the best we can really hope for realistically, outside of, I don't know, uploading our brains into the cloud and living on as ethereal beings or something like that. I'm not sure.
I think people have that fear factor around you don't.
Yeah, let's skip the fact that your question was barely answered. Yeah, there is no long-term. Okay.
No, the long-term outcome.
Honestly, I was going to say he could have just said no. Like he could have just wrapped up that whole thing with no, and then they could have moved on.
That fear factor around you don't know the long-term outcome. Does that mean that's something bad? But you've had a lot of benefit from a carnivore diet. What was life like before you started carnivore, and how did it change since you've been, 95% carnivore these last 8 years?
Yeah, let's talk about your personal anecdote, Shawn.
Well, so I started this, I'm 57 now. So I started that when I was in my late 40s, 49 to be specific. And at that time, I had already been on a low carbohydrate diet, so I was getting some benefit. I felt my appetite was better. But the things I specifically noted was aches and pains that I'd had, particularly I had some pretty significant tendonitis in my right knee. That resolved after about 2 months. I noticed my digestion improved tremendously because I was eating on a ketogenic diet. I was eating obviously low carb, lots of salads and giant spinach salads and things.
You heard it here, guys. Salads are bad. Salads are bad for your digestion.
Things like that. And I'd always had, just digestion, which wasn't bad, but I could just tell. Well, I mean, I thought that was normal for me. I didn't realize it was a problem until it went away. Then I was like, wow, this is what it feels like to not.
Actually, I would say that that does happen, right? You live with something that bothers you for so many years that you think it's normal, right? And you only notice it if it goes away. I think that's yeah.
But and also just to address the salad with the stomach issues. I mean, yeah, maybe he was eating too much spinach or too much kale to where it was irritating his stomach. If I eat too many mangoes, my stomach goes crazy. I can't eat too many mangoes.
I love mangoes.
What does that have to do with plant? Like he could have just changed up his food or stopped eating the salads. I mean, he was already on the keto route before the carnivore diet. So that's one thing. He was already kind of in the low carb space. But yeah, I don't understand this thing where people will feel bad, or that's a general term, but people will have like certain symptoms, whether it's like they're farting too much or stomach aches or whatever, right? And then they'll just throw out the diet completely. They'll just be like, oh, it must be my plant-based diet. Let me try just red meat. That they can just change the foods. Like you have the power to like change things. I was eating too many mangoes, hurt my stomach. Guess what? I figured out it was the mangoes. I just stopped eating the mangoes and everything went away. Like you can do that.
Not even notice you're digesting food, which I thought was kind of strange because I'd always, you'd eat and then you'd kind of know things were going on. And then at that point, it was like, did I eat anything?
Brendan, what are you eating?
A big bowl of oatmeal with 2 cups of frozen berries, just like last time.
Nice.
Can't even tell. There's no such things like that. I thought my energy was better. Athletically, I got stronger. I got leaner.
Leaner. Okay.
And so, I mean, in the, as I said, I'm an older guy, and in the 8 years that I've been,
I mean, he's not lean by any measurement. He's very swole, right? I don't know.
I think by lean, he means like lower in body fat.
Oh,
like a lower body fat percentage.
I wouldn't even say that. I mean, he's posing shirtless all the time. He has fat, visible fat. I don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he
doing
means leaner than he was before. Maybe, I don't know. But I haven't seen him before he did carnivore diet, so I don't know what he looked like before.
I mean, there are pictures floating with him being like a rower or something like that. Okay. I mean, this is the problem with anecdotes, right? You're now like left with a subjective experience that we all know that people tend to like do revision on their past. So yeah, and that's all the information we have.
This carnivore diet, I've gotten quite a fair bit stronger. And I was already an athlete. I was already a strong guy back then. I mean, there's nobody who would have said, "Oh, you're a weakling," but I was quite strong, quite athletic. But I just got better, and I've been able to set multiple world records in different events. Primarily in rowing and things like that. But yeah, so it's
He got he set world record at 50.
I've heard that. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't looked into it because I don't really care that much. But I did hear that he has a couple records or something.
But at 50, he said he went carnivore at age 49. So at
yeah,
age 50?
it was recent. Yeah, it's probably for his
wow.
age bracket or something. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah.
Okay.
It's been quite beneficial, for me personally. And then obviously the biggest benefit I've had was being able to share it with other people and see the tremendous life altering, for the
And ignore the tremendous life altering negative outcomes.
better results that I've seen literally on a daily basis, which is really what really gives me a lot of joy to see that.
I think so many people look to you as the absolute expert on the carnivore diet, given that you wrote the book and you have a lot of experience. I think people, when they start carnivore, they need a bit of guidance. And depending on who you talk to, there's going to be different approaches to start. What do you see when people start carnivore? What is the main thing they're doing wrong?
Diarrhea, rash, LDL goes up, heart rate goes up. Yeah.
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of people that, so I talk to a lot of people about the diet, and I think the number one thing, a lot of people started for a reason. Hey, I'm depressed, I'm overweight, I've got an autoimmune disease, and that's fine. It can work for that. But I think until you address, I mean, you probably didn't get that way by eating a carnivore diet. Clearly, most people have been eating this, and most people struggle with eating the wrong foods, and it's hard to stop. And like I mentioned, the food companies are literally designing foods that are addictive for us. And so I think that the biggest thing that I tell people is, let's work on overcoming that. And so in the beginning, it's not about restricting calories or eating less or worrying about weight loss. Change your relationship with the food, so
Okay.
that you eat enough. I tell people, eat enough.
Sorry, I'm trying to pause once in a while because I'm not sure how YouTube works. So
you don't want the cupcakes or the pizzas or things like that. So you just do that. And so a lot of people, they go, they're used to, I'm on a diet, I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to restrict things. And then, that's where you get into trouble in many cases because, your energy is low. Maybe maybe your hair starts to fall out for some people. You just don't feel very good. And then you're always starving because you're like, I can't do this. There's too much stuff around me. So I think that's probably the number.
I agree with this portion where he's saying that, heavy calorie restriction, short-term, like fad dieting, where the goal is to restrict calories and lose weight, usually isn't sustainable for most people. Like most people who do that will end up putting weight back on.
Yeah.
Because they're not changing their relationship with food. And, so I can agree with that based on what I've seen and heard, but I don't know what that has to do with a carnivore diet. Like, I get that a keto diet or a carnivore diet might be more sustainable for certain individuals because, people like bacon, people like red meat, people like eggs. So it might be more sustainable in terms of keeping your calorie low, and you're restricting a lot. You're eliminating a lot of foods. You're essentially eliminating all, heavily processed food that leads to poor health outcomes. Processed meats. Well, actually, no, not with the bacon, but yeah. So my point is, I can understand what he's saying here, but I don't know why the conclusion would be carnivore diet, right? Like, yes, that's a problem. Like, people need to focus more on their relationship with food, looking at the research, eating, plant-based, stuff like that. But in a way, a lot of people use the carnivore diet as just another fad diet, as just another way to restrict calories and lose weight. Yes, maybe they can do that long term, but then you have other long-term health risks. So,
number one thing that I see as an approach that is beneficial. So just almost intentionally, I wrote in the book, eat meat like it's your job in the beginning, because it kind of is for a while. And then once you've kind of reached that point, wherever that is, 2 months down the road, 6 months down the road, where you've kind of changed how you perceive nutrition, then you can start to dial in and work on, weight loss goals, or some of these. A lot of these things will happen naturally, but on their own. A lot of people find even if they eat till they're completely full, they often lose weight, which is kind of interesting, and it's often very liberating, because a lot of people complain about the carnivore diet being very restrictive, but a lot of people find it's actually very freeing, because they're not constantly thinking about food, and they don't have these food intrusive thoughts all the time, where they're thinking about, I just ate breakfast, what am I going to have for lunch? I say lunch, what am I going to have for dinner? Where am I going to go? Let's go to this new restaurant. Let me try this new recipe.
Nobody lives like this. I know like two people who live like maybe they have some kind of more cognitive thought about food, but the rest of people just get shit. They just go to supermarket and grab stuff off the. Nobody lives like this. What is he talking about? And also to your point, Brandon, then why is it restricting to meat specifically? Like, it seems like the potato diet would work in the same fucking way. I don't know.
Constantly scrolling, looking for ideas to eat. That kind of goes away. It's kind of like, and it's kind of freedom from that. It's kind of freedom from really an addiction. And I think that's the
restriction is freedom, guys.
That's the very early message that I think a lot of people have to get. And then, of course, there's some of the technical, making sure you're hydrated, realizing that your digestion is going to change, and that there's some periods that go with that.
Diarrhea.
How do you incorporate exercise and those types of things? So there are some considerations. And I think the other thing that's really important is having a supportive environment, because when you are on a diet and you're constantly inundated with, oh, you shouldn't eat that, it's going to kill you, or it's bad for you, or it's bad for the planet, or you don't have support. In fact, when I did a survey on 12,000 people doing the diet, and one of the questions we asked was, how supported are you, either with your friends and family, work, or with your physician? And those that felt supported were much more likely to have success. It was like a 30% increase in their likelihood of obtaining success. So finding if you don't have a local support structure like friends and family that support you, at least find a community. That's why a lot of these online groups are so beneficial, and they help people with regard to,
Here's the problem, right? Nobody's going to support a diet that brings your LDL to 300, right? Like, that's just based on the research we have. That should not be supported, right? If your LDL is 200, 300, 400, as high as we've seen a lot of these carnivore dieters raise their LDL, that probably shouldn't be supported. Definitely not by medical professionals. Maybe your family might support you because they love you, but yeah. And I was going to say, like, I get, like, me being vegan or eating plant-based, it does help. Like, when I'm at an event and there is no plant-based desserts, there is no, by plant, I mean fully plant-based, there's no vegan desserts, there's no vegan things, I don't eat the desserts, right? So it does help with caloric intake, because I'm not somebody who's got a very strong willpower. I will eat, like, I will eat a lot of the stuff that's put in front of me. So it does help. I get that. You know, if somebody's on a carnivore diet and everywhere they go, they can't eat the extra calories they would normally eat that led to them gaining weight, that makes sense to me, right? That would be effective in weight loss, but we're just talking about weight loss or weight management. We're not talking about the other things that come packaged in the diet. With plant-based eating, you can have both. You can have weight loss and weight management, diabetes symptom management, all of these chronic diseases being managed. And nope, sorry, I mixed them. You can have weight loss and weight management with plant-based diets and manage chronic disease risk and all those things. You can have both. That's my point.
You got there. You got there.
Yes, thank you.
Motivation, accountability, questions, just having a friend.
Oh, I wanted to say, I don't remember. It's either Carnivore Clownery or Carnivore Cringe. Shared a post of somebody whose total cholesterol was 1087 or something like that, and their LDL was like 800. It was insane.
Having someone you can talk to, sharing ideas, those things become very important, and that's why.
And one more thing I wanted to say: if you go into any carnivore group, people are gonna start yelling at you that plants are trying to kill you. The plants are literal poison. It's toxic, and don't talk about plants. Like, it's supportive by telling you bullshit.
I've been doing it for so long. In fact, right after this, I go to my meeting where I just every single day, 365 days a year, unless I'm on a plane, I'm in a meeting trying to support these people because it is a long-term prospect for many. Not every, some people you can say, hey, here's what you do, and they go, and they're fine and they can do it. A lot of other people, they just need that continual feedback, which, you know, I'm happy to provide. I think it's important.
So when it comes to Dr. Baker's best carnivore foods to eat for optimal health, what would the best foods be?
You've got to
Guesses?
I like steak.
enjoy like I like ribeye steaks. You know, I like fatty meat. I mean,
yeah, he literally said that. Okay.
Well, to be fair, it was in the promo.
Oh, right.
for
That's
me,
true. I
that
forgot.
to me is a pinnacle of, you know, satiation, satiety. I think it has tremendously health benefits to it. So, but at the end of the day, you've got to actually enjoy it. And I know there are people that say, I just don't like that much fat. And I think you have to just sort of dial in what you like. I think red ruminant meat tends to be what most people tend to go for and tolerate the best. So I think certainly that's up there.
Imagine talking about a diet as something that needs to be tolerated, and then claiming it's a good diet. Like, I don't know. Just seems weird to say that word about a diet that you're promoting, right? Well, yeah, most people seem to tolerate it the best.
Patrick, how are you feeling? You got a mix of emotions over there?
I don't know, I'm just waiting for some studies to look at or something like
something
this.
of substance? You're
Yeah.
waiting for anything of like, yeah.
Right now it's just anecdotes or personal feelings. Yeah.
Well, that's the fun part, Patrick.
Patrick is here for business.
Yeah,
he is here to get down to business.
I think beyond that, then you start getting into, you know, other cuts of meat. You know, whether it's I think beef and lamb are equally outstanding. By the way,
it's literal baby animal. You mother.
What about dogs as well? Or
yeah, just want to hear that again.
I think beyond that, then you start getting into, you know, other cuts of meat. You know, whether it's I think beef and lamb are equally outstanding. By the way, then you know you get into the seafood and the non-ruminant animals such as pork and maybe some of the poultry like duck and chicken and things like that, which I know people
literal sentient animals
will variably prefer. Dairy products tend to be sort of on a gray area for many people.
Oh, for many people.
I think some people.
I thought he was going to say something of substance. No, but it's for many people.
Can do well with them. Some people, depends on the type of dairy, obviously, whether it's.
He's a promoter of raw dairy. Is he? Does anybody
I don't
know?
think so.
Okay.
Not that I'm aware of. I don't think Shawn Baker does raw dairy.
Then what on earth could he mean by that? Oh, probably like the amount of fat, like full fat and shit.
Maybe, yeah.
You know, how much the proteins are in there. You know, some like ghee, for instance, is probably the most well tolerated dairy product that I can think of, just because it's
Ghee. Oh, is it a refined butter kind of situation? It's processed, Sean. You against processed food?
Clarified butter with all the milk solids out of it. And so, I mean, I think those things tend to be favored by most people.
I mean, a diet that is comprised of what people can tolerate and favor, and is supposed to cure everything. And yeah,
I'm not someone that, again, we can talk about, as you mentioned at the beginning, I had added fruit to my diet for a period of time. That was literally for a week, and it was just to test a cholesterol shift and see if it was going to change my cholesterol or not.
Does anybody know if he did?
I don't think it did. But he, if I remember correctly, he was eating.
He was
very
eating
low
like 50
amount of
grams or
apples.
something, right?
Yeah, like 100 grams of apples or something like this.
It's less than
100
a
grams of
fucking
apples for a
apple.
week. Yeah, I don't know what you'd expect to see. And I think he kind of, I don't know if he did. I don't know. Here's the thing with Shawn Baker. I don't know if he's too smart or if he's not smart enough. It's very hard, right? Because I don't know if he specifically chose that small amount of fruit to mislead people, or if he truly thought that, like, oh yeah, if I just eat 100, like, it's hard to know if he's like strategic or if he's just clueless. I'm hoping he's just clueless, because if this is strategic, it's going to make me very upset.
I don't know. His social media is pretty strategic, I must say. I've been saying that I don't think he's stupid. I think he's very deliberate. I've been saying that for a while.
Yeah,
I hope you're wrong.
All charlatans are pretty clever, yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of how to manipulate or persuade an audience.
Yeah.
And it's not for me. I don't do well with that. And so I
even like the fact that he wouldn't commit and say fruit are bad or something like that. He just allows his constituents to do that, right? He wouldn't commit. He would say, well, it's not for me. I think that shows that he's clever enough to not commit to anything, and therefore not be liable for anything, I think.
I tend to eat what I enjoy and what makes me feel the best. And so that's
who I enjoy.
Sort of live my life and sort of participate in my nutrition. It's like I gotta like it, and it's gotta sit well with me.
So what happened to you after a week of eating? I think it was apples that you ate every day.
Yeah. So the reason I did that was, there's a guy named Nick Norwitz who's he's got a PhD from Oxford University in the UK, and now he's doing finishing his medical training up at Harvard. And he is a big proponent of it. He's a lean mass hyperresponder. This concept of being very lean on a low carb diet and having very high levels of particularly total and LDL cholesterol. And he has shown, and it's been shown many, many, many times now, that in that situation,
God, he waffles. Oh my God, men, get to the point. I mean,
adding carbohydrates back in to refill your glycogen stores leads to less trafficking of fat from the liver into the blood, so your cholesterol will go down. He demonstrated that very, very nicely. And it's, like I said, Adrian Sotomoto, who's another Oxford researcher, has shown that people on low carb diets, being lean is the biggest determinant of how high your cholesterol might go. So in an effort for just to see what would happen to me, because my cholesterol is not super high, it's higher than most people would like, but it's not like ridiculously high. But I thought, well, let me try to add in and do my own experiment. I don't want to eat.
Patrick, I want you to speculate a little bit. So, do you remember what his cholesterol is? I remember it was like.
I think it was from what I saw, about 200. I think, which is very high. Yeah.
it's very high, but it's not like colossal, right? So, do you mind speculating if he has like a genetically just low cholesterol, and that's how he keeps it relatively low? Seriously.
I think 200 is still pretty high. Yeah.
For LDL, yeah, LDL 200 is like people who have like, because the range is what it should be like 50 to 70 or like under 100, right? At least. So he's got double. That's high. Yeah, I would say that. I am. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Sorry.
This is I am interested in this lean mass hyperresponder thing they keep talking about. I haven't looked into it too much, but I could be wrong, but I think the speculation is that the leaner you are, the higher your LDL cholesterol is going to be on a low carb diet, which I don't know how that would make sense. I would like to learn more about it, but that could also be, if there's something to that, it could also be why he's at 200 and somebody like Paul Saladino is at like 400 or something, because he does have more mass. He is like a bigger dude. So maybe, I don't know if there's something to do with like mass or like weight and cholesterol as well. So I don't know if it has to be lean mass high. It could just be that the more mass you have, the higher your threshold is for like cholesterol or something. I don't know. I'm just speculating, but yeah, I don't know. I would like to learn more about it.
Though I think it's just genetics.
Lean mass hyperresponder is based on like that. The actual criteria hasn't got anything to do with BMI or leanness in it. It's just to do with HDL, cholesterol, triglycerides, and I think it was the third one, LDL cholesterol, off the top of my head. And it's just to do with people who adopt ketogenic diets. They tend to this group of people, they tend to have these lean mass hyperresponders. They tend to have massive shoots in LDL cholesterol, and they tend to be sometimes lean a lot of the time. I'm not sure about that, but I think it's like they just tend to be lean. So that's where the name came from, lean mass hyperresponder. But it doesn't actually, in the criteria, have anything to do with BMI.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, okay, if you take somebody who's like obese and you put them on a carnivore diet, is their LDL cholesterol also not gonna shoot up? Assuming they're not losing weight, right? Because obviously with weight loss, you tend to see a drop in cholesterol. But if they maintain, let's say you're 400 pounds and you maintain that weight, if you eat the way that lean mass hyperresponders are eating, would you also not expect to see a huge increase in cholesterol? I'm just confused as to, they're acting as if that like the leaner you are, or the more in a healthy weight range you are, the higher your cholesterol is. So therefore, don't worry about it. Which I don't think is true. Like, I just haven't seen anything about that.
So right now they're doing like a study, or there's a group looking into this, and yeah, we would think, because there's people with something called familial hypercholesterolemia, where people have elevated cholesterol from a young age genetically, and this is associated with increased risk for heart disease. So there's even people with this who can get heart disease or heart attacks like during teenage years or childhood. So
wow, that's crazy. I can't even imagine, man. That's rough.
I actually know somebody who had didn't even realize he was having a heart attack. Thought he was having a panic attack. Apparently, at age 19 was his first heart attack.
And
wow,
28, something like that. His second.
And did he have familial hypercholesterolemia, or?
I'm not sure. I'm not that well versed in his medical situation. Yeah.
But yeah, just to be clear, back to what you're saying about you mentioned someone who has obesity. For them, that would be difficult to be a lean mass hyperresponder, because in the criteria you have to have very low triglycerides. So it could be possible if because there's like 3 criteria to be a lean mass hyperresponder. But it's I don't find it too interesting, because generally the whole science points towards high cholesterol, because the number of atherogenic lipoproteins you have in the blood, the greater the risk of a heart atherosclerosis building up.
Right. It doesn't really matter how lean you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
So
can't.
it's
see
not like
that
there's a
being-
special case where you have elevated cholesterol.
If you're this level of jacked and lean, you cannot get heart attacks. Like, yeah, that's funny.
And
Tone says that lean mass hyperresponder is someone who has LDL cholesterol above 200, triglycerides below 70, and HDL above 80.
yeah, so this is like the criteria when someone adopts a ketogenic diet. If they satisfy these 3 criteria, then they are classified as a lean mass hyperresponder, and they tend to be lean because it's clear.
But what is the criteria? Like, what's the purpose of the criteria? Just like for fun? Like, I don't like. Does it lead to a certain health outcome? Like what is the purpose of the criteria?
So this is like the phenotype, and they're just sort of they just find this like a really interesting phenotype to investigate. So
Okay.
So they're like, yeah, trying to now do a study to see, but the study is very short term, and heart disease takes a lifetime to progress. So yeah, it's quite controversial, this group on Twitter.
I'm gonna ask even another question. What are the actual traits of lean mass hyperresponders beyond those 4 things of having specific LDL, specific AGL, specific triglycerides, and specific body composition?
So body composition isn't actually a criteria.
Oh, it's not actually a criteria. Okay.
Yeah, it's just
I've got the traits. No shirt, no shoes. Doesn't wear deodorant. Doesn't brush your teeth. And talks inside of grocery stores in front of cameras.
I wanted to say screams inside of supermarkets.
Yes, those are the criteria of lean mass hyperresponders, besides what we've listed.
But yeah, Nick Norritz, the person who did the statin and Oreo experiment, he doesn't do these things, but he blocked me on Twitter.
Of course,
because he uploaded a tweet of Liver King and Nemo Delgado, and he wrote liver versus lentils. What do these 2 bodybuilders have in common? And then I commented saying that Nemo will probably not be focusing on, lentils as a main protein source.
Yeah.
Because you would agree with this, right? If you're a vegan bodybuilder, much better protein sources are things such as tempeh, protein powder.
Seitan.
Yeah,
you'd probably want to do like lower calorie, high protein foods, depending on your protein intake. Yeah. I like lentils because I'm getting like 100 grams of protein a day. But if I was going to get more, I would need to have some kind of like either a lot of tofu or seitan or something like that. Yeah.
I would need to eat so many lentils. Yeah. To get like the protein that we try and hit on a daily basis.
All right.
Eat Oreo cookies because I thought fruit would be a little less of a problem, and so I added up 100 grams, which is about 4 apples a day. An apple's about 25 grams of carbohydrates, so I added that in to my diet.
How ridiculous is this? Jesus Christ! Just adding 100 grams of anything that isn't a powder that Shawn hates. Like, what effect would that be? Like adding 100 grams of watermelon would be like.
I'm a little bit confused because he said 100 grams because he said an apple was 25 grams of carbohydrates. Is he saying he added 100 grams of carbs or 100 grams of apple by weight?
Let's hear it.
It sounded like he's saying he added 100 grams of carbs, that's more than just 100 grams of apples by weight. Let's see.
Less of a problem. And so I added up 100 grams, which is about 4 apples a day. An apple's about 25 grams of carbohydrates.
Oh, so he says 4 apples a day. Yeah. Good catch.
Okay, so that's more than I thought originally he added 100 grams of like by weight, which usually when you say I added 100 grams of apples, you mean by weight. So that's also kind of misleading. But maybe he means carbs. I don't know. That's a lot of apples. I feel like 100 grams, 4 apples. That's a lot. That's kind of like a lot of apples to eat too. Something's weird, dude. Like I'm telling you, something is not right with this story.
Yeah, I can pack 1 apple a day, like maybe 2 apples a day is like my limit. I need variety. But he's used to mono dieting, so
So I added that in to my diet, and I hadn't had, that's probably those 7 days or six or 7 or 8 days. I can't remember. I think it was about 8 days I did it. Were probably more fruit than I've had in 8 years. I mean, like the total. That's like the total amount. And a couple days I felt okay. By about day 3, 4, I started to notice that my stomach was just feeling a little bit like irritated. And by about a weekend, I was like, I'm just having too much gut issues. I don't want to do this. And I didn't, I wasn't really doing it for any other benefit. I didn't feel like it would help me athletically. I didn't feel a need to do it. It was just an experiment to see what happened with the cholesterol. And it didn't really do much, which is kind of funny. It didn't really do much to my cholesterol, and probably because I am big right now. I'm heavy. I'm not super lean. I mean, you wouldn't look at me as if I was a fat guy, but I'm not like lean where I think that would have the difference, because I eat enough to where my glycogen is generally topped off via gluconeogenesis from the protein and fat I'm consuming. So I didn't really have a problem. Probably wasn't in a glycogen depleted state. Interestingly, and I'll share that after that experiment, and I realized it didn't do it, I wanted to see how fasting would impact my cholesterol. And it goes with this, because when I did fast long enough to deplete my glycogen, so that was about a 38-hour fast.
I didn't know that he was a faster as well. Why? Is there any, I don't know. Why do people fast, Patrick? Give me some science, please.
Well, I read a review about fasting recently, and the benefits seem to be just from caloric restriction. And I've seen, another recent article on fasting where I actually had some negative aspects on some biomarkers to do with cardiometabolic in terms of the artery health. So a lot of people think when you're fasting, your body's sort of like in detox mode, but it's also stressful, and
it detoxes you of your own fucking tissue. That's what it does. I'm speculating.
I've never felt good. I've never felt good with fasting. I've tried it for like a day, 30, what is it, 24? What's a day and a half? Is that 36 hours?
Yeah.
I've tried like 36-hour fast, and the only time I could ever really do it is when I ate like 5,000 calories a day before, right? If I'm eating like my maintenance calories or my usual amount, I get real like shaky. Like I don't like, you got to eat. Like I don't like fasting. Like I think for me, I've never noticed like a benefit, like just from my personal feeling wise. So I just try and eat regularly.
The day before, my total cholesterol was 156 milligrams per deciliter, which is considered fine. Most doctors would say that's a perfect cholesterol level. I fasted for 37 or 8 hours, and the next day it went from 156 up to 346. So almost a 200-point jump in under 24 hours, which, that's alarming that it could jump that high, because, we're making decisions, lifetime decisions. This is on a Monday. If I went to the doctor on Monday when my total cholesterol was 156, he would have patted me on the back and said, hey, good job. But I came back on Tuesday, he'd be like, oh my God, we need to put you on a statin and call the cardiologist. And
wait. So he's saying that when he fasted, his cholesterol jumped by 200 points?
Could be
Does that make any sense?
Just a mistake in testing. Could be a lab mistake or something.
Because doesn't fasting, aren't you supposed to get, for most people, aren't you supposed to get your blood test taken while you're fasting? So that way you don't have the influence of what you ate that morning?
Yeah, 12-hour fast, yeah.
Here he did 1 day and a half, right? So,
but it somehow jumped to 100 points. Don't we also have like evidence that people who like don't eat like in a fast, the cholesterol actually falls?
I think I have seen some, particularly carnivores, mention on Twitter that when you fast, your cholesterol goes up. So it's possible, but it will be potentially, after 1 day and a half, his body's quite stressed. So that's
Yeah,
why.
I don't know. That's very strange.
Yeah. Well, then we have again no choice but to trust Sean's anecdote.
So it's just how crazy we make these decisions based on one single lab value, and that's why
Nobody makes decisions on one single test. Do they?
No, the last time I checked, you don't get a statin prescribed the day you walk into the doctor's office. Usually, you have repeat visits. I would hope there are some other you would have some recommendations, try and change your lifestyle, try and do this. But if you have chronic high cholesterol, then you would be prescribed a statin. That would make sense to me.
Yeah, my doctor even didn't call me. I did in the first, after one, I think even after 7 or 8 months of going vegan, I did find myself dipped into low B12, which to me indicates that I was already kind of deficient before going vegan. But my doctor didn't even call me, until we did a repeat test a year later. And by then I got my supplement on track.
So it took you 1 year to get a supplement?
No. When I saw the results, I immediately checked my supplement. My supplement was one of those multis that the B12 doesn't really absorb. So I got the isolated B12 thing, and since then I even got too high. I even got past 900 on my previous test, the one before this one. I was a bit zealous.
When people ask me about labs, I kind of it depends what else is going on. There's a lot of variability there. I'm not too excited about those numbers because very often,
But Sean's LDL is consistently high, isn't it? It's consistently above 100, isn't it? So I would guess,
yeah.
I don't know why he's talking about one singular instance of LDL spiking. His LDL is so high that even on his lower tests, he should take a fucking statin, right? So I'm really not sure. Is he talking about that you could have a perfect LDL one day and 200 points higher the next day, and then he's prescribed the statin? No, Sean, your LDL is consistently high. Whatever happened in that specific test after fasting for 40 hours or whatever, nobody would, a doctor would ask, what are you doing? What did you do that it jumped so high, right? They would investigate. They wouldn't just prescribe statins. But Sean's LDL is so consistently high that he should probably take a statin, shouldn't he?
Without the clinical context, and very often that's not really looked into. I mean, when you go to the doctor and you come back and your LDL cholesterol is 150, they're going to say, here, statin. They're not going to ask you, hey, what did you eat the last couple of days? Have you been exercising?
Well, I mean, what did you eat the last couple of days? If your cholesterol jumps from LDL from 70 to 150, fuck yeah, they're going to ask, what the fuck you doing? What did you do in the past few days? I mean, that's ridiculous, Sean. That's a ridiculous claim.
That's not ever part of the discussion, and it should be, quite honestly, but it's not.
Let's talk about blood glucose, because I think that when people start a carnivore diet, I see this a lot on my community. They are otherwise healthy, all their markers are fine. And then one member said, oh, my blood glucose went up to 120. My fasting, my A1C is 6.2. Everything else is fine.
One member, we see it all the time, right? In carnivore cringe.
Well, I mean, with regard to the fasting blood glucose, and this
didn't it happen to Sean as well? Wasn't his blood glucose borderline or something?
He was his HbA1c was pre-diabetic.
Yeah. And before he says, oh, it's just one test, HbA1c tracks your fucking blood glucose for several months, doesn't it? That's what this test does.
And I think his fasting glucose was high as well. Yeah.
fine?
Well, I mean, with regard to the fasting blood glucose, and this is something that I think is, when we talk about fasting, what does it actually mean? Well, fasting should mean that you have nothing in your gut so you're truly postprandial, you're truly in a fasting state. And when you're consuming, say, a steak, it's going to sit in your gut and take a long time to transit through, and that's by intention. These new drugs, the GLP-1 receptor agonists, the GLP-1s. I mean, when literally.
What's a GLP-1?
So these are it's medication to help with weight loss. So it's like Ozempic, I think.
Oh, my favorite subject lately. Okay, GLP-1. I'll remember though.
Really, when meat and beef goes into our gut, it stimulates GLP, which slows our gut down so that we can have more time to fully.
How does he know that? How do you know that, Shawn? Is it nutritional studies?
Absorb that nutrition. So I think a lot of people, particularly when it comes to fasting number, you need to fast longer to get a truly fasted glucose number. So an overnight fast of 12, 14 hours after a steak might not be long enough. And so you may still be post.
Evidence?
So he's trying to say that because meat sits longer in your gut, you may have to fast longer to get a more accurate blood glucose reading. I just don't. Yeah, I'd have to see some evidence for that. I don't know. Is that speculation or?
Yeah, and it doesn't sit in you like was it 24 to 72 hours? So at worst you have to like fast for 3 days before you take a blood glucose. That's a little extreme, isn't it? Like, even if it was true, if that test was true, right? It's something that you can't expect of people to do for that test. So that test wouldn't make the market, so to speak. It wouldn't be adopted because nobody would fucking fast for 3 days for a blood test. I mean, it's just ridiculous. They would look for a different test.
Also, I want to know how often Shawn Baker goes to the bathroom. How long is he sitting in his gut for, Is he going like once a week, once every 2 weeks or something? What's going on?
I mean, if you just Google how long meat sits in your gut, it's going to be like 24 to 72 hours. So the variation is quite big, I guess.
I want a personal response from Shawn Baker telling me how often he uses the bathroom. Dr. Shawn Baker, if you are watching this or listening to this, give me my response. You have 48 hours.
Well, the chances are non-existent for that to happen. But maybe you can clip this, Brandon, and
I will. Yeah, honestly, that would just be fine. He might just respond to it as like a joke, but I might post it on my channel or post it on Instagram or something.
He might, when he does his, he sometimes films himself with like a bloody cutting board.
Oh, dude, I hate it so much. Oh my God. Like he's got the big knife and he's like all smug eating a steak while somebody's saying something totally wrong in the video next to him. Oh, I hate it so much.
in the comments, he owned them. He's fuck me.
Prandial. There is so I would say maybe 18 hours, maybe even 24 hours to really get a fasting number. There is, depending on what.
What do you mean, 18, 24 hours and that's it? So he poops every day? Shawn, do you poop every day? I really want to know now as well. I'm joining in, Brandon. Shawn Baker.
I know.
Tell
Shawn
us
Baker,
how often do you poop?
Patrick, I have an unrelated question. Is that jawline genetic or are you doing something?
What do you mean?
Something for it? Your jawline, buddy. Is that genetic or are you doing something special for it?
It's probably the light.
The light's good for sure, but I don't know, man. I don't know. Looking good over there. Are you mewing? Are you doing the chewing thing?
I don't know what that is.
That rubber thing that you chew on to help your jaw? No, you're not doing that?
No.
All right. I'll look into some stuff.
Yeah, Patrick is looking very cute today.
Yes.
I'm with Brendan.
I appreciate the compliments. Everyone here is looking great.
Thank you.
Shawn Baker.
Shawn looks great with Alpine. Oh, he's flagging Alpine Butcher. He's plugging. So he's making money right now. It's
He might be,
Alpine
honestly.
Butcher.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to know. That's the thing with social media, man. There's so many snaky tactics.
Well, it didn't work so far. Free vegans haven't noticed it for watching it for 4 consecutive hours already, and none of us notice it. So, not working. They should take away his check.
I would say maybe 18 hours, maybe even 24 hours to really get a fasting number. There is, depending on what this person's background was, maybe they were pre-diabetic, maybe they had some diabetic pathophysiology going on. And so we always have, there's also this so-called Samaji effect or dawn effect that occurs and where glucose in the morning rises. There is data coming out now that depending on what the person does, we know like for instance, elite level athletes like professional cyclists and ultramarathon people will see their blood glucose. Some of them will see it skyrocket to 300, 400 milligrams per deciliter, which is incredibly high. And some of those people actually have higher postprandial glucose responses as athletes. And so I think we're learning that there is a little bit more subtlety to this. It's not necessarily what's going on with that person, but the other thing is that
finish the fucking sentence, Shawn. Sorry, Patrick. Do you have anything smart to say? Okay.
Nothing to add. Yeah.
You didn't name anything. You didn't name a study. Didn't even talk about what the research was really, really referring to.
And you just dropped in the middle of a fucking sentence. Make the point, Shawn.
Yeah, I don't know.
We know that A1C is generally considered a 3-month, assessment of what our glucose has been. However, that's assuming a red cell lives 3 months. And sometimes
it's assuming the red cell lives 3 months. Is that, does that have any kind of validity? Scientific validity, this question? I have no idea.
These red blood cells live longer. And then so if they're living for longer, they're going to have more glycosylation occurring.
Oh, so his claim is that if you're on a carnivore diet, then your red blood cells are going to live for longer and therefore accumulate more glucose in them?
I think his avenue is trying to discredit all of the standards we have in place currently, right? Yeah. I think he's saying, well, this test would be good if, or like we don't know because maybe the red blood cells, or maybe the meat is in your gut longer, or maybe like his whole avenue in this video, his whole like the angle he's working is trying to discredit all of the standards we have in place without telling us what is actually wrong with them with evidence.
Yeah.
Or without proposing anything new with evidence. He's just discrediting based on speculation, based on his personal feelings. And it's just such a, he's like the quack of the quacks. Like it's really bad. Like this is really not good. I don't know.
Also, like imagine how bad it could be if based on this speculation, right? If somebody picked this up, right? And somebody who comes in does the HbA1c test, right? It comes up as high enough to be diabetic, and they don't do anything about it, right? Diabetes is pretty innocuous in our culture, like in the world right now, right? So, like, people don't know just how bad it can get on diabetes, right? People get amputations. It's one of the scariest shit ever, right? My boss had diabetes SORS research going on, and I was like, I don't want to do anything with that because diabetic SORS is one of the grossest shit that can happen to your body. It's absolutely fucking disgusting, and the debridement that you have to go through, the treatment of it is terrible. So, like, imagine if somebody becomes diabetic and then the doctor says, don't worry about it. Or go home, fast for 3 days and come back to do the test or something like that. So dangerous.
Well, people lose their lives to diabetes. Like people, I had a friend who literally lost his father in high school because he wasn't managing his health. Like if you don't manage diabetes, you can very quickly get become, get a limb amputated or lose your life. It's not a joke. And I want somebody to ask Shawn, like, okay, if you can have whatever, like if you can implement the standards that you would want to see, what would it be? Right? Because he's got a lot of like critique for all these tests and all these recommendations, but he's not actually proposing anything different or anything, like he's not actually saying anything of substance of like to create positive change or things that he would want to see change. He's just kind of saying, well, don't listen to all that. And that's it. Like he's not saying don't listen to all that and do this. He's kind of just saying, well, don't listen to all that. Okay, what would you want to see? Right? Do you want just people to just eat red meat and not worry about the tests and just eat intuitively? Because I guarantee you that's going to be way less reliable and lead to worse health outcomes than the standardized tests we have now.
But it gets worse because he did about 1.5 hours for now make the claim that people are going into diabetes remission. But how does he know that if not based on in HbA1c?
And that's the core of the issue with people like Shawn, people like Chafee, people like Saladino, is they take results, they have a certain standard of evidence, but it is so inconsistent, right? They like epidemiology when it supports them. They don't like it when it doesn't. They need this trial for plant-based diets. They don't need the trial for smoking. They like it's really inconsistent. And that's why like I love seeing Dr. Matthew Nagra in a debate, because he like ties them down and forces them to admit or to reveal their horrible standard of evidence or their inconsistent standard of evidence. It's awesome. That's like my favorite thing he does.
Yeah.
And so we have maybe artificially elevated A1C. So sometimes things like a finger stick or CGM, if you have the luxury of getting that, can sort of show you that, wait a minute, these things aren't lining up, and maybe my blood glucose isn't as high as I think it is. So there could be a number of things going on. It could be, depending on what's going on with the person's weight, if they're gaining weight, I mean, it could just be they're over consuming, because I mean, a lot of times blood glucose represents overall energy status. And so if you are, I mean, I know I talk about eating a lot on carnivore initially, but I mean, there's a point where some people do, even on a carnivore, overeat, and that can be shown in things like blood glucose. So like I said, you can still overeat a carnivore diet. You can still get fat on a carnivore diet. It's harder to do it. And sometimes, it's very.
Why does he think that it's harder to do? I wonder. We did speculate last time on whether or not Shawn is a calorie denier, or calorie in, calorie out denier. So why would it be harder to overeat on a carnivore diet? I want to hear from Shawn again, like some kind of explanation, some kind of a reason, please.
Yeah, my speculation is because of the satiety and because of the restriction. Like I said, if I go out and there's nothing vegan, I'm not eating dessert, right? So like I would probably be able to speculate the same thing is true of plant-based diets for the most part. You're eating more fiber, so it leads to more satiety, and you're restricted, so you can't eat everything that's in front of you. So that's what I would say is the reason. But yeah, I agree. I would like him to say it, because we don't know what he's thinking. Okay, it's harder to gain weight on carnivore diet. Why? Like, that's what I would guess, but what does he actually think?
Another good question to Shawn Baker on Instagram.
But it can happen. It does happen from time to time.
I'm glad that you said that, because I think people think that when they go carnivore, they're just going to lose weight. And then there's all these questions, why am I gaining weight? Like it's some sort of like shock horror thing, but it's optimal nutrition. And that's why if you eat more because maybe your hormones need it, that's why you could be
Guys, I've eaten 6 bowls of bacon today. Why am I gaining weight? I've eaten 6 bacon. I'm doing everything you guys told me to do. Why am I gaining weight? That's so funny. You can't make that up, man. That's too funny.
Can you talk about it for a little longer? I need a breaky break. Okay.
Sure. Go for it. Hello, Patrick.
So people on here, there was one case study, I think, of someone who went on the Twinkie only diet, and they
I remember that. Yeah,
they lost weight. So
they lost a lot of weight, didn't they?
And then some of their biomarkers improved. So any sort of method which helps you restrict calories in the short term, it can lead to beneficial effects. And the two are not mutually exclusive. You can improve your health in the short term whilst also minimizing your risk for non-communicable diseases such as heart disease, cancer, in the long run, using the best available evidence. It's just I feel that the carnivores, some of them feel that this is the only way they can eat, right?
And I would say like it's a lot of focusing on short-term like symptoms, maybe that they think they're eliminating with the carnivore diet and denying all of the long-term risks. That's the problem. Is most carnivore dieters, they deny the science or having consistent what did I say? Inconsistent threshold of evidence or whatever. So that's my biggest issue. Is like look, if you want to claim that you went carnivore and your joints feel better, okay. But then don't also deny that when your LDL is 300, you're not at a higher risk of heart disease, you know?
I'll be interested to see someone who sort of, what's the word? Sort of takes on the risks knowingly, right? Just like, I'm sure there probably are some people out there who are just don't care about ethics and are like, this is the only way of eating, which I've sort of managed to find. But yeah, ideally, these people should go see a specialist who can sort of identify the problem rather than just resorting to personal feelings and on subjectivity, experiences on, I ate this, my digestion feels better, so or I didn't eat this, my digestion feels better. So,
and that's the thing is like at the end of the day, you said it right. This is for people who don't care about ethics or morals and like there's a way bigger motivation or a way bigger reason to not do the carnivore diet, right? Forget about nutrition, right? We're doing this for fun and because it's funny and it's interesting and we could talk nutrition. But at the end of the day, these people are like paying for animals to be exploited, have their throats slit, to be abused for, again, because of the nutritional science, especially, this is like completely no reason. This seems like completely in the opposite direction of like what's helpful for humans. So it really doesn't make any sense. So yeah, this is really, if you don't care, like there's a way bigger argument for why you should be vegan.
Yeah, talking to a carnivore dieter does feel like talking like visiting in opposite land sometimes. Yeah, Patrick, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if hypothetically there was a carnivore dieter who actually cares about moral issues, then I'll just urge them to see a specialist if it's possible. I can appreciate it can be expensive, maybe, to see a specialist depending on someone's situation, but also it could be possible to, follow a carnivore diet without supporting rights violations.
Yeah.
Wait, how so?
So, for example, freeganism or like
like dumpster diving.
Yeah.
You don't even have to dumpster dive for freeganism. I mean, I can name like 10,000 places where you can get clean, well-cooked meat that is otherwise thrown out.
That's the thing is like, here's the thing though, right? If you care about ethics, if you're willing to do that, you can talk to a plant-based dietitian online. Like you can, there are other avenues, right? You can try the potato diet. You know what I mean? Like usually what I find is, at least based on my interactions with carnivores, is they are 110% convinced. They are fully convinced that every time they eat a plant, their body shuts down, essentially, right? I don't know if you guys saw my community post, but there was a comment. I was watching a carnivore video because I wanted to react to it. And one of the comment was like, yeah, I went to a diner, had a fully carnivore breakfast, but they must have used seed oils. And it's like, I felt it 30 minutes after I ate, and it's like, it's the seed oils, they go straight through the gut into the bloodstream. And everyone that replied was like, yeah, man, like, oh my God, that's so true, or something. I was like, what? I was like, what are we talking about? Seed oils don't go into the bloodstream through the gut. That's just not, like, it doesn't get metabolized differently or digested differently. I just don't, that's the thing. Like, a lot of these carnivore people could find solutions outside of the carnivore diet, but they just refuse to try other things.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Gaining weight. The last question I want to ask also is about kidneys. Does protein or heavy protein diet affect the kidneys?
Wait before Shawn answers with some kind of rather something, Patrick.
I would just say that generally healthful plant-based dietary patterns, they tend to be beneficial for kidney health. Yeah.
What about meat heavy? We don't have carnivore dieting those responses, but we have probably some kind of a meat heavy diets on record.
But generally, for example, the indices which score healthful plant-based dietary patterns, within there, they score animal foods negatively. So people who are scoring higher in healthful plant-based dietary patterns, they'll tend to have lower meat consumption there. I'm sure there's papers which look at red meat consumption specifically, or individual animal products. Maybe I can have a look.
Or for kidney health too. That's interesting.
Yeah. I reversed just to hear the question again.
Your hormones needed. That's why you could be gaining weight. The last question I want to ask also is about kidneys. Does protein or heavy protein diet affect the kidneys?
Yeah, often in a beneficial way, to be honest. I mean,
Patrick? That's quite the claim, no?
Well, let's see what he cites for that.
There's data out there. I mean, my friend David Unwin in the UK has shown in his population of chronic kidney disease, diabetics with chronic kidney disease, that a higher protein diet actually reverses that.
His friend David?
Did he say the last name? Go back for a second.
In the UK.
Affect the kidneys?
Yeah, often in a beneficial way, to be honest. I mean, there's data out there. I mean, my friend David Unwin in the UK.
David something.
There's data out there. I mean, my friend David Unwin in the UK.
Okay. I don't know if he's saying a last name or if he's like David in the UK. Like, is he doing that on purpose? Like, does he now want us to look it up or something? I don't
know.
It's like, yeah, my friend Bob in Africa said that. Like, what are we talking?
My friend Bob in Africa asked his friends, and therefore we know that it reduces. But also he says it's diabetic people with kidney disease, right? So you have two things here. And assuming that people can lose, well, I'm just speculating, right? Assuming that people can lose some kind of weight, like lots of weight on the carnivore diet, and therefore sort of mitigate their diabetes. I wonder what it says for the kidney disease that probably has some kind of correlation with diabetes. So I don't know.
Well, and this is the problem when you don't actually cite a study with and tell us the exact title. His conclusion, right? What he's saying is, my friend David in the UK did research. Did research where people who were diabetic, who had kidney disease, ate more meat and had better health outcomes, or like mitigated the disease, or whatever he said. But if we actually dig into the study, I wouldn't be surprised if there was weight loss involved, if there was something with low carb dieting involved. Like, there's other factors besides, increased meat consumption leads to less kidney disease. That's not really the same thing. So that's why it's important, like, for us to dig into a study and actually read what the methodology was and what the results were, instead of just taking him at his word. or I guess, sorry, his friend David's word.
But it's worse than that, Brandon, because he doesn't say anything about meat. He says about protein. So maybe David from UK actually made some kind of a study with protein isolate. We don't even know. And Shawn is notoriously against powdered proteins. So
Right. No powders.
Could have been plant protein for all we know, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. We don't have a study to go off of.
just
So annoying.
one more time, trying to look. Maybe there is a study. Doesn't seem to be.
So for the people listening, I sent post-mortem some of the studies I mentioned, and
Yes,
yeah, they added
are
it
in the previous part 1, in the description, and there is a pinned comment saying so as well. Yeah.
Cool.
So I'll send you the study I mentioned earlier on to do with the funding. So 1,200 times more in the US and 800 times more in the EU. So
I would appreciate that. That would be fun to read. So just one more time.
There's data out there. I mean, my friend David Unwin in the UK has shown in his population of chronic kidney disease, diabetics with chronic kidney disease, that a higher protein diet actually reverses that. There is a misconception that higher protein diet damages kidneys based upon something called the Brenner hypothesis.
Because his friend David said so.
This is Dr. Brenner from the 1980s, I believe, showed that in animals, particularly rodents, mice and rats, that high protein diets actually cause glomerular damage, and that was associated with kidney disease. And we do know that when humans do go into kidney failure, they will spill more protein, and so we associate protein as being stressful to the kidneys or being associated with kidney disease. However, it's not the protein.
What does it mean by spill more protein when you go into renal failure? What does he mean by that? Spill more protein? What, into urine? Is that what he's talking about?
I have no idea. Honestly, it is all just gibberish. I'm to the point where she asked the question, and by the time Shawn is done responding, I forgot what the question was, because he is just spewing whatever is coming to his brain with no sources, no like clear track of what he's saying. I don't know.
Yeah, it sounds a bit of stream of consciousness. Just to remind people, the question was, does a high protein diet harm kidneys?
So the kidneys or being associated with kidney disease. However, it's not the protein that's causing the damage. It's often diabetes is probably the number one cause, pre-diabetes.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, right? So you get the population of people who have diabetes and chronic kidney disease, some kind of a kidney disease, right? That is associated with having diabetes. That's what I'm saying also about diabetes. It's a much worse disease than people know. I mean, it just, it has the potential to completely go through your entire body and cause all kind of shit in there. But so diabetes is associated with some kind of kidney diseases. And if you go on a carnivore diet, we will grant that you can lose weight, obviously. We don't know why. Shawn won't say us what mechanisms or how that happens. And then it's beneficial to... So maybe, Shawn, go for a study of people with chronic renal failure without diabetes, like not related to diabetes, or like several other accounts, like a bit of a more isolated population, right? People who have only one problem with them. I mean, this is simply something that you do in research, right? You try to take people who have only one disease, or a disease that you know how to, it's kind of non-related, or that you know how to adjust for, right? But here you have a population that clearly, well, anyways.
Yeah, the thing is, he's not really answering the question. The question was, does high protein intake lead to damage in the kidneys or worse outcomes for the kidneys? And he starts talking about diabetes patients with renal failure or kidney failure, whatever, right? It's not really answering the question. That could be unrelated to whether like chronic high protein intake, especially from animal foods leads to kidney damage or leads to some kind of poor outcome for kidneys. So he's kind of I don't want to say he's dodging, but he sounds like he's kind of referring to some, like he's kind of using an example where meat isn't associated with kidney damage in the case of like diabetes patients. And he's not really answering the direct question, which was, does like chronic high protein intake lead to worse outcomes for kidneys? So I don't know. Yeah, that's very weird.
Yeah. People in the chat, like, go subscribe to Brendan, Logical Consistency, and to Patrick,
Thank you.
Food Mastery. Please do.
Patrick, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was also going to add that if there's someone who's a little bit concerned whether higher protein diets increase risk for kidney disease, I haven't seen any convincing evidence for this. I think it's like a myth, like a long myth, of people saying if you eat lots of protein, you'll damage the kidneys. So,
and what is high protein too? Like, what's that threshold? Is 100 grams too high? Is it 300 grams? Like, what's the threshold?
Yeah.
Insulin resistance is probably the number one cause. Prediabetes, insulin resistance is probably the number one reason for kidney failure. So higher protein diets.
That's not necessarily true. There are kids who have kidney failure. I mean, he's saying prominent. I don't know. Maybe like, what is he basing it on? Like,
and it also has nothing to do with the question. Again, like she didn't ask, is high protein intake a prominent cause of kidney disease or kidney failure? She asked, does it lead to kidney damage? So it has nothing to do with the question. I don't know why he's saying that.
To be fair, excessively fair, Shawn did start his waffling with, in a positive manner.
That's true. He did say that, but again, he said yes in a positive. It does help in positive ways, but then is citing things that have nothing to do with that either. So I don't know.
Yep.
I mean, one of the thoughts is it causes more sort of hyperfiltration and stress going on in the kidney, which there is some truth to that. But it's kind of like the analogy that exercise makes my muscles get bigger, and that is that bad? Is that stress? Is that a use?
Oh, we're gonna get the thing that eating protein gets my kidneys bigger. Meme that was quoted. Do you remember, guys?
Yeah.
No?
I don't remember. No.
At the start in the trailer, right?
Yeah, in the trailer, he said, "Only if you eat lots of."
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I remember. Okay, yeah. Let's see what he says.
Exercise makes my muscles get bigger, and that is that bad? Is that stress? Is that a eustress? We know that, like, for instance, pregnant women, their kidneys get bigger. We know this if you have a nephrectomy and you lose one of your kidneys, your other kidney will have compensatory enlargement. And so when your kidneys deal with higher protein, they make it bigger. And
okay.
And
now we know what he's talking about. Okay, so now the context is there. So he's saying the kidneys will get bigger, not the protein. Okay.
Yeah, 5 minute body did him a terrible misjustice, frankly.
I don't think that's a problem. In fact, what we see in old people as they shrivel up and die and they become anorexic and cachectic and sarcopenic and their brain shrinks, all their organs shrink down. That's a sign of impending death. So having big plump organs is not necessarily a problem. I mean,
Patrick.
Yeah, I don't really have too much to add really to that.
I mean, I can use a great example. If we're just talking about like speculation, bodybuilders who are huge, who take different drugs, their organs are ginormous. So bodybuilder, especially like big bodybuilders, when they do autopsies and they take a look at their organs, their hearts are like twice the size of a regular heart because of all the drugs. Their kidneys, their liver, they're all huge, and they usually have, like, depending on the cause of death, but a lot of times they'll have like little tumors in the organs as well. So I don't think you can say, okay, because old people, when they're close to death, they have smaller organs. I don't see anything wrong with big plump organs. Okay, well, bodybuilders have huge organs and they still have worse health outcomes. So it's not this is why you need science and you need evidence. So this is not good. Like, yeah, I don't know.
I mean, if you have liver hemangioma, right? Hemangioma is basically, it's a benign tumor that's made out of like blood vessels, right? And I saw one, I think I still have pictures of it, this big coming out of somebody's
Oh
body.
my God, that's crazy.
That's amazing health outcomes, isn't it? If somebody has giant hemangioma of the liver, then it's good news, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
There are some exceptions. There's a tumor or something like that, or
I'm sorry. There are exceptions. Okay.
livers for some reason if they're very fatty, but it's not generally the issue. I mean, I think Stu Phillips has a wonderful paper in 2018 looking at a huge systematic review of higher protein diets versus lower protein diets. And this is in healthy people, no effect on negatively with kidney damage. Jose Antonio has done studies.
So wait, we actually have like a full searchable study now. So Stu Phillips,
Stu
2018.
High protein versus low protein.
So he's very well respected, and yeah, as I mentioned, I think it's a myth that protein harms the kidneys.
Yeah.
So
more protein diets.
I would trust
this is in healthy people. No.
Yeah. Brendan, are you looking it up?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. We finally have something to look at. Meanwhile, I'm drinking aspartame. Oh, aspartame, or however you say that word. It's some kind of a zero drink that I don't want to advertise. Don't do what I do, guys. Don't drink zero drinks. But actually, Patrick says it's fine, so.
Okay, yeah, I'll look at. I'm just curious for my own, but yeah, I trust Patrick.
Sorry.
Effect on.
Oh, Patrick, you're muted.
Kidney damage, Jose.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, particularly for weight loss. I know there was like some dispute about cancer outcomes, but I think the evidence is weak regarding artificial sweeteners and cancer. But this is why I sort of say, if you can get away without drinking artificial sweeteners, that's probably, it might give you some benefits, but I don't actually really know. Yeah, I drink them. Yeah.
Yeah, the problem with me is that last week you mentioned it. And I had a bit of this drink zero at my sister's. And for a change, I kind of liked it because there's the C word zero, which I don't like. It has a terrible aftertaste. But the P word zero is actually tasted fucking delicious. And then last week you went on the tirade of, yeah, it's okay to... So now I'm addicted to this shit. So now I have to quit it because now I drink it by the liters. Yeah.
But yeah, I can link like a trial in which weight loss was less, well, most in the people who were on the, consuming the artificially sweetened beverages. And there was also another meta-analysis which came out a few weeks ago with results tending to suggest artificial sweeteners compared to water lower weight.
Interesting.
Right.
That makes sense.
I might get something out of this addiction. All right.
Antonio has done studies on guys that are, bodybuilder types that were consuming massive amounts of protein. We're talking 3, 4, 5 grams per kilogram of body weight of protein with no evidence of renal damage, liver damage. So I think it is a unfortunate thing that is, again, drawn from these epidemiological associational data and the fact that we observe protein spilling in people with kidney failure, not that the protein is necessarily causing that. So I think, if your high protein diet is also in conjunction with an ultra processed food diet, then that becomes
I'll just add that.
I think the problem.
I'll just add that, the epidemiological associations, for example, showing that plant protein is beneficial for kidney disease outcomes. That's an epidemiological association, and it's
Guys, I'm very sorry. Something came up really quick. Can you guys give me like a few moments?
Of
I'll
course.
be like right back.
No worries.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, we can talk about this shit for a little longer. So yeah, epidemiology. I didn't. Again, it's just a habit of not giving about it a second thought, right? Because he throws in a study. Only in one case, he actually mentions the person who is not David from the UK, but actual name and such, so we can search it up. But all of it is, it doesn't even matter. He didn't, in the beginning, if I remember correctly, he didn't say that all the epidemiological studies should be thrown out. He did say that in the past. He said all the nutrition field should be thrown out, right? And he been quoting nutrition since then.
It's strange because he sort of switches back and forth. So, like the paper he mentioned, who was it by Stuart Phillips? He said,
Yeah. No. Fuck. Let's go back actually. What was the
but
name?
anyway, as I'm aware, the vast majority of epidemiological evidence demonstrates that protein intake is not harmful for kidneys.
Yeah.
And then he was like, oh, the epidemiological evidence showing that of protein spilling. Yeah. I don't know what specific studies, but just generally looking at it in large populations, particularly plant protein is beneficial for kidney disease.
Yeah.
But I think we can ask Brandon, but I think the paper he mentioned was by Stuart Phillips, right? Or
We'll let him put on his little hearing aid. Yeah.
Brandon, do you remember? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
What was the paper he mentioned about? Was it a paper by Stuart Phillips?
Yeah, Stu Phillips, 2018, comparing high protein versus low protein.
Yeah, but that is epidemiological evidence.
Yeah, I bet it is.
Because then, like early on, he was like the epidemiological evidence showing that protein is harmful is not,
Conjunction with an ultra
guys, I something came up out of nowhere, so I may have to go in like a couple minutes. All right.
No worries.
Yeah, no worries. We're almost done. It's the last question. How long can the waffle about fucking renal failure?
This food diet,
all right, let's see.
That could be a problem. But I mean, I think the problem really is, what are those other things you're consuming? And I think a meat-based diet plus junk food is miles apart different from a meat-based diet plus no junk food. That's a huge difference. And so,
based on what, Shawn? Based on what? Is it epidemiology? Is it?
I think we have to look at it in those terms.
Absolutely. I think a last thing that people, they want to find a carnivore or a keto doctor that understands what they're going through, their labs, and how to interpret their results. How are you helping to break to
why interpret the results when you can just make up whatever you want,
in that connection to
oh,
find
look at the tagline, find a carnivore doctor.
Aren't they like notoriously unresponsive to people telling them about their problems?
Get support.
I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of people who can go on a carnivore diet don't really need a doctor. I mean, if you're pretty healthy,
What
a fucking claim. Oh my god.
Brandon, before you go, do you want to respond to that?
It's just incredibly irresponsible. A lot of people who go on this diet don't need a doctor. What, based on what? Like, what? Everybody should have a primary care. Everybody should have, like, you should never do self-experimentation alone. This is not reliable, and it could lead to a lot of horrible health outcomes. Like in the diabetes thing, right? If you don't have a doctor, how are you going to know you're pre-diabetic? How are you going to know before it's too late,
I mean, it could be worse than that, right? You could be having diabetes, going on a carnivore dieting, starting to put your diabetes in remission, right? So if you didn't quit your diabetic pills, right, or powders or whatever you take for diabetes, hopefully you didn't just quit based on this meme shit, and you actually put in your diabetes in remission, well, you put yourself in hypoglycemia, wouldn't you? I mean, it's incredibly scary. And this plonker says that if you go on a carnivore diet, you shouldn't have a doctor. You don't need a doctor. Fuck.
Yeah, that's
But
crazy.
if you're on a lot of medications, if you're diabetic, if you're on hypertensive medicines, antidepressants, things like that, a lot of times you have to be careful because you can become hypoglycemic, you can become hypotensive.
Okay.
There is some nuance on how to prescribe medications, and so
Yeah, but how does that? How does him saying that people on the carnivore diet don't need a doctor? I mean, people are going on the carnivore diet to like put themselves in remission for all of these diseases, right? They're not just doing this meme diet because it feels like, right? They have something to fix.
That's a great point. Yeah, I think most like healthy, young, athletic individuals are not going on a carnivore diet, right? It's usually people who are probably overweight, probably have other issues. So to start out by saying, you probably don't need a doctor seems very irresponsible. Before, like, he's clarifying himself a little bit now, but to have that claim to start, maybe you shouldn't have said it like that. I don't know.
Yeah. And it's notorious that people who listening to somebody talking, right? They're walking away with 3 things that they remembered, right? What are the chances? It's not going to be most carnivore dieters don't need a doctor. What are the chances they're going to not remember him waffling about how you might need to and not remember this very clear point of not needing a doctor?
I am
very true, guys. I'm very sorry. I do have to go. Just something totally random came up, but thank you everybody for watching. Definitely follow Patrick. This is Postmortem is hosting the stream, so I hope you're following her. Myself, you can if you want. No pressure though. And thank you. This is awesome. Hope we do this again. And go vegan, everybody.
Yeah.
Take care. See you later.
See ya. Guys, so I think it's a high note to end on. Most carnivore dieters don't need a doctor. And he clarifies that some people do, which I would claim are most people who come into carnivore dieting. But I don't know. Patrick, would you like to continue, or do you think
let's finish it.
Yeah, let's finish it off. All right.
A company called Rivero, and we have physicians licensed in all 50 states.
So it's basically him plugging his company. All right.
Just opened for business a little over a month ago, and we have something like 8,000 people on our waiting list, and it's really exciting to me because every clinician that we've hired, and we're hiring more all the time, gets it. They are many of them have done carnivore diets. They're very supportive of that. It's not the only thing we will do. We will generally be low carb, focusing on elimination diets, and some people will go carnivores if they
want to have the potato diet as well. I mean, it's elimination, no
need to. But that a lot of people like that they've got a physician that's not going to fight them or not going to we're still going to be responsible, and we still have to practice within the confines of the legal system for medicine. And so it's a huge undertaking. We spent millions of dollars putting this together, and I'm very excited to see how this goes, because I think medicine is at a point where, one, a lot of people are frustrated with it. Two, we see that the paradigm and where it's going. I mean, what you will see with conventional medicine over the next decade or so will be a greater and greater shift towards automated care. We'll have AI. You may interact on the computer with an algorithm, and you may stick your finger into a.
That's actually true. I know a researcher who's working on on an app to help out. Not with diagnosing though. It's with diagnosing post-operative people, right? Diagnosing if they have inflammation, shit like that.
No, I think AI will be like, we'll see all sorts of technology integrated in the future. In addition, like software to remind, for example, people to take their medication, getting notifications through the app.
Yeah, I don't see a problem with that. Do you, Patrick?
I think it'll all four of these initiatives to improve health.
Yeah.
Little machine that you might have an adapter at home. It draws your blood. It can analyze it, sends it off. The AI will diagnose you, and drugs will come to your house tomorrow. That is what
Vegan gaze is so fucking late again. That's amazing.
they're working towards, whereas a physician maybe in the background might oversee and sign something off that you'll never really interact with. And it'll be a great thing for the drug companies because they'll just be able to get more drugs into people's hands without having to go through those pesky doctors that they have to wine and dine and bring donuts to their office staff and that type of stuff.
What is he talking about? What the fuck is he talking about?
So we'll see this less and less of a barrier between the drug companies and the
less and less barrier between drug companies. I mean, I don't know what would be the difference between the it would be some kind of a point he's making if the drug companies would be responsible for the AI development, right? Or the AI diagnosing. And I don't understand his point.
I think he's still in the sentence. Let's see what he says.
Sorry.
The customers, if you will, or the addicts, like as you might say.
Less barriers between the drug companies and the customers.
We'll see this less and less of a barrier between the drug companies and the customers, if you will, or the addicts, like as you might say, you might want to describe them.
I mean, for fuck's sake, Shawn Baker, you at least used to operate on people, right? And guys, operations like orthopedic operations are the hardest to get over. It's months, years sometimes. Do they not take fucking painkillers, Shawn? How can you call people who take medicine, like medication, addicts? It's an incredibly reductive way to look at it, especially that some medications are fucking life-saving. And
yes, statins are life-saving, and I don't think anyone's addicted to statins.
Yeah, I mean, if people could, in fact, don't people like feel better and then drop the meds because they feel better? So they're definitely not addicts, right? People, if people can drop not taking medicine anymore, like can drop medications, they fucking do, right? So how can you call it an addiction? Like, unless he's speaking specifically about opioid addiction, but I don't think he is, because we were talking about diabetes and renal failure and all kind of shit in this video. We were not talking about just pain simplicity. So it's not talking about opioids, which is a problem sometimes. So
yeah, it depends on the medicine, but with a lot of medicine, you can actually feel the effects. For example, statins, you don't feel anything. It's treating a risk factor, which you cannot feel your LDL cholesterol, changing in value.
Yeah. By the way, humble brag, mine is like 69, which is awesome for many reasons.
So is this LDL? Is this your LDL cholesterol?
Yeah, my whole the entire lipid thing is I think 142. It's not bad.
Very impressive.
Yeah.
And have you measured your ApoB?
No, it's something I should ask for next time.
You should, yeah, because sometimes you can have. So LDL cholesterol is it's an imperfect proxy for ApoB. So LDL cholesterol measures the total number of cholesterol inside the lipoproteins. And then you can get something known as LDLP, which measures the total number of LDL particles.
Yeah.
Because LDL particles are atherogenic, but then you also have other particles as well, which are also atherogenic. So generally, when you have lower LDL cholesterol, you have less LDL particles, but sometimes there can be like discordance. So you can have low LDL cholesterol, but you can have many particles. So if you can get your ApoB tested, because for example, my LDL cholesterol is a lot higher than my ApoB. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'll do that.
The addicts.
I mean, it's really highly unlikely that my GP would let me do all these tests. He's like, like I try to take a blood test, like a general blood test every 2 years. He's like every time he's looking at me like, why? I think he's like fully convinced based on my results so far that I'm like incredibly healthy, and he deems it redundant or something. But I'll try to.
Maybe if you have a look, it was on your lipid panel, ApoB or LDLP.
No, I scrutinize my my blood results.
Okay.
So yeah.
Like as you might you might want to describe them, and that's going to happen, and we're going to see that, and it's going to save some money, and it's going to keep more people medicated, which arguably is a bad thing depending on your perspective, versus what we'll be doing, which will be obviously a lot of
You're gonna be putting people on a fucking carnivore diet, and that's gonna save the magic, like save people's lives. Except all these people on the Instagram that complain about all the horrible shit that happens to them. And I don't mean like the relatively benign things like diabetes and and like the diarrhea and rash. I'm talking about like people sharing their lipid panels. They are fucking astronomical. But our science-denying carnivore diet is gonna fix everything except for the people that it doesn't fix. Sorry.
I'd like to add that with regards to all of these anecdotes, like we mentioned earlier, we haven't seen any carnivores acknowledge the presence of negative, at least we acknowledge that there are negative experiences. For example, a fruitarian might be following a diet compatible with veganism, but that we can sort of hypothesize why the diet went wrong, you know. Because if we like generally with the ex-vegan or ex-plant-based dieters, it's quite like all of the videos I've seen up to this point, it's been pretty like there's some red flags. It's quite easy to identify some red flags just in their statements.
Yeah, and the answer is eat more fat. I'm sorry, I'm having way too much fun, and people in the comments later are going to tell me that I'm mocking Dr. Shawn Baker, which, yeah.
Eating disease requires a lot of support, and the fact that we have physicians overseeing it, we have coaching staff, we have, which provide almost daily feedback in many cases. We have a tech platform that is driven to encourage you to be successful. So that's what we're doing with Revero, and I'm super excited about this.
So Shawn, what happens to people who are not successful? What happens to people who are walking in and saying, Jesus, dude, I feel like I'm dying, the way they do in the carnivore groups? I'm genuinely like wondering what they're saying to them, right? Like, what are the recommendations? Do people have to come into your company to like and pay for it to actually get some kind of a troubleshooting, right?
We have a dedicated research team. We'll be publishing our data as research. So, this is a way to change sort of the healthcare paradigm. So I'm excited about that very much.
So how can people find out more about Revero?
Yeah, just go to Revero.
Okay, so this is like a full-blown ad at this point. I think we can probably skip it, maybe to the end.
Let's see what. Yeah. So at the start, he said, it's been a long stream, but he said that you don't need a doctor, right? And what was his reason for that again?
If you're on the carnivore diet, you probably don't need a doctor. You only need a doctor if you are diabetic or have high blood pressure or whatever.
All right, interesting.
Yeah. Or if you want to go on a carnivore diet, you need a doctor. You need a team of doctors called whatever the name of his company is.
So come to Revero. I think from what I've heard before, that Revero, they don't just promote the carnivore diet, but basically based on his logic, if Revero promotes a carnivore diet, then you won't need a doctor. Or
Jesus Christ.
which I think this is.
I'm going to leave the link for Rivero in the description of this video. So if you're interested, because if you need a carnivore doctor or advice or coaching.
You don't need a carnivore doctor. You don't need a doctor. Yeah.
I was going to say, yeah, she link Rivero. Well, she can link Rivero, but please also link the studies, which are not there.
No, it's a shame, isn't it? Almost hour-long video. And just to check again, maybe they add it. No, there's no.
But yeah, even the stream we did last week, we added in the references.
Yep.
So.
Yep. All right. I think we had enough. Patrick, any final words about the entire experience of our carnivore healer, Dr. Shawn Baker?
I'm quite happy with the argument I took away from him last week. Is that yeah, all powdered foods are unhealthy. Liver capsules are a powder, therefore liver capsules are unhealthy.
Oh, there's some rivalry with Paul Saladino, isn't it? Yeah, my main takeaway from this is that the entire field of nutrition science is wrong unless it's right. Yeah.
But yeah, I think yeah, being serious now, yeah, the thing about powdered foods, something being powdered doesn't make it inherently unhealthy.
Yep.
And yeah, in the last stream he talked about processing hindering absorption. In many cases it can work in the other way. Processing can actually increase the absorption of nutrients, which I don't think we discussed.
Yeah.
And I don't think he provided evidence. So just like the blanket statement that processing reduces absorption of nutrients. And I'm surprised that we managed to get through 1 hour of listening to this. It's pretty impressive. Yeah.
I think it was incredibly beneficial, Patrick, to have you here for this, especially the last time. This time you didn't have much to say about it because it was just a lot of stream of consciousness today from Shawn Baker, unfortunately. But guys, if you're interested in the evidence that Patrick provided, they are in the description of the last video, part 1. Patrick, thank you very much for coming. Logical consistency was amazing as usual. Let's remember why we're doing these debunks, because I think carnivore dieting is getting bigger, isn't it? And the claims are getting bigger and more upside down universe kind of. So I think it was incredibly valuable. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us, Patrick. And
no, I think it was interesting to hear your responses as well. And I think it's like a turning point at the moment. I sort of, at least from my side, I feel like the carnivore community is just a little bit of a joke right now. And maybe that's, I don't know if that's the correct way of representing it, but I just feel I feel like all of the arguments have been thoroughly debunked, more or less. And I feel like there's been such a really good pushback. And even non-vegans are sort of debunking the carnivore community or stating why the stuff that they're presenting to the public is so harmful.
Yeah.
So it's just everyone's sort of disagreeing with what they're saying. So
yeah. All right.
And in the chat, is there any sort of questions from people?
Oh yeah, we can do a bit of a chat situation, guys. If you wanna ask Patrick questions.
Or was there any sort of objections to what we said in the stream from anyone?
Not today. Today we weren't graced with carnivore input in my chat, but
I'll link the studies I mentioned on funding and also kidney disease with plant-based protein greater intakes being beneficial.
So guys, check out the description and the pinned comment on this video after we finish off. How about that?
All right.
There's a question. Why didn't you tell me to put the tofu on the tray and not in the basket? Tone asks. So Let's just ponder on that while we finish off the stream.
Wait, what was the question? I didn't get it.
Why didn't you tell me to put the tofu on the tray and not the basket?
Is this related to something we said?
Not sure. Just let's ponder on that until the next time. How about that?
Okay.
Guys, thank you very much for coming in. Thank you for listening. See you next time.